Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling something that's got everyone talking these days.
Yeah, it seems like you can't go anywhere online these days without hearing about it.
LLMs, those large language models that seem to be popping up everywhere.
Right, like GPT-4.
Oh, and Claude.
Yeah, and even Google's Paul M.
I mean, they can do some seriously impressive things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Writing stories and poems,
Translating between languages.
even coding like a pro. But it all begs one big question.
What's that?
Are these LLMs actually thinking?
Hmm,
Or are they just masters of mimicry?
yeah. That's the question everybody's asking.
So we're going to take a deep dive into that today.
Yeah, sounds good.
We're using this really interesting article called The Evolution and Implications of Large Language Models Simulating Thought in the Digital Age as our guide.
So jumping right in, it's easy to get caught up in the hype, right?
Totally.
These LLMs can churn out a heartfelt poem or debate philosophy.
Yeah, and even compose music.
But at their core, it's all about statistical pattern recognition.
Not actual thinking.
Not in the way we humans think.
So they're like supercharged autocomplete that's read the entire internet.
Aha,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great way to put it. But understanding the why behind the words, the feelings, the intent.
Right. The nuance.
Exactly. That's a whole different ballgame.
So for our listeners out there, a key takeaway here is,
Don't get fooled.
yeah, avoid anthropomorphizing these models.
I mean, they are incredible tools,
Really powerful ones.
but they're still just tools.
But let's break it down a bit.
Sure.
How do these tools actually work?
Well, they're built on something called neural networks.
Okay, I've heard of those.
They're complex systems that are kind of inspired by the human brain.
So are they like digital brains then?
Not exactly.
Oh, okay.
Think of them more like systems that learn by analyzing massive amounts of data.
Oh.
They spot patterns and then use those patterns to make predictions.
Hmm.
Imagine feeding a computer every book ever written.
Wow.
That's the kind of scale we're talking about here.
So it's less about replicating the actual physical brain
Right.
and more about replicating the result of learning from a ton of information.
Exactly. And that learning leads to some pretty amazing abilities.
Like what?
Well, they can generate different creative text formats like poems, code scripts, you name it.
Wow, that's a lot.
And they can also translate between languages seamlessly.
No way.
Oh, yeah, and even answer your questions in a really comprehensive and informative way.
So like a super smart search engine almost.
You got it. And as these models grow larger with billions, even trillions of parameters,
Parameters, what are those?
basically think of them as the knobs and dials that control how the model learns and processes information.
Okay, so more parameters mean.
More complexity, more learning power.
Got it.
And as they get bigger, they start displaying what we call emergent abilities.
Emergent abilities. Now, that sounds intriguing.
So it basically means capabilities that weren't explicitly programmed in. They just arise from the sheer complexity of the model.
So they kind of develop new skills on their own.
In a way, yeah.
That's wild.
We're talking about things like logical reasoning, problem solving, even a degree of common sense.
Wow, things we usually associate with human intelligence.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is.
But hold on, if it's all about patterns and not real understanding,
Uh-huh.
there must be some limitations too, right?
Of course there are.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest ones is their lack of grounding in the real world.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so an LLM could write a totally convincing story about a trip to Mars,
Okay.
but it doesn't actually understand what Mars is or the concept of space travel or the challenges involved.
So it's all just words to them.
In a way, yeah.
So they might write about walking on the sun
Uh-huh.
without realizing it's a bit of a hot situation.
Exactly. That's why it's super important to remember that LLMs are operating in a world of language, not reality.
It's like they're living in a giant library,
Yeah, a library with infinite books.
but no windows to the outside world.
That's a great analogy.
And speaking of limitations, the article also mentioned something about the potential for these models to perpetuate biases.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It said they're trained on massive data sets of text and code,
Right.
which inevitably reflect the biases present in our society.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So if an LLM learns from biased data, its output might be biased too.
That's the concern.
So how do we tackle that?
Oh, it's a huge challenge for sure. Researchers are working on ways to carefully curate training data and develop techniques to detect and mitigate bias in these models.
That's an ongoing effort.
Absolutely.
And it's crucial to ensure fairness and responsible use of these powerful tools.
Couldn't agree more.
Definitely agree on that.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of responsible use, the article also mentioned something about the environmental impact of these massive models. Didn't it say training one of these things uses a ton of energy?
Yeah, that's right. The computational resources required to train a large language model are significant. It's like powering a small town for a while. So there's a growing focus on developing more efficient training methods and exploring ways to reduce their environmental footprint.
That sounds like a necessary step. So
Yeah.
we've got these incredible abilities, but also some serious challenges to consider. What else should we be thinking about as we dive deeper into the world of LLMs?
Well, the rapid advancement of this technology raises some fascinating questions about the future. For example, what happens when LLMs become so good at generating content that it's virtually indistinguishable from human-created content? What does this mean for things like authorship, creativity, even the way we define intelligence?
Whoa, that's getting pretty philosophical. Yeah. I can see how this technology could blur the lines between human and machine in ways we never anticipated. Are there any specific areas where researchers are focusing their efforts to shape this future?
Absolutely. One key area is explainability. Right now, LLMs are often seen as black boxes. We know they work, but we don't always understand exactly how they arrive at their outputs. This lack of transparency can be a barrier to trust and adoption.
It's like they're brilliant artists who can't explain their creative process. Yeah. Makes you wonder, are they actually understanding the concepts or are they just really good at imitating?
Exactly. So researchers are developing tools and techniques to make LLMs more transparent, allowing us to peek inside the black box and understand the reasoning behind their decisions. This is crucial for building trust and ensuring these models are used ethically and responsibly.
That makes a lot of sense. More transparency definitely leads to more trust. What other areas are on the research radar for these LLMs?
Another exciting area is the development of hybrid systems, which combine the power of LLMs with access to external databases and real-world information. Imagine an LLM that can not only generate text, but also tap into a vast library of medical knowledge to provide doctors with evidence-based insights.
Wow, that could revolutionize healthcare. So instead of just relying on the patterns they learned during training, they could access and process up-to-the-minute information and become even more powerful and accurate. That's amazing.
Precisely. And as these models become more integrated into our lives, the role of regulation will become increasingly important. Governments and organizations around the world are starting to grapple with the implications of this technology, and we can expect to see guidelines and regulations aimed at ensuring responsible development and use.
It sounds like the future of LLMs is full of potential, but also some serious considerations. This technology is evolving rapidly, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds. But before we get too lost in the future, let's bring it back to the present. You mentioned earlier that these LLMs are already being used in some pretty incredible ways. Can you give us some real-world examples of how businesses are leveraging this technology today?
You bet. We've talked about the potential, but what's happening right now? It's incredible to see how businesses are already using LLMs in so many creative ways.
I know, like where do we even begin?
Yeah. Well, one area that's absolutely exploding is AI-powered customer service. Instead of waiting on hold, you can chat with a bot that understands your questions and provides helpful answers 24/7.
I've definitely seen those popping up everywhere. Way more helpful than those old school bots that just gave canned responses?
Exactly. And because LLMs can process and generate natural language so well, these bots are getting smarter and more human-like all the time.
So it's not just about answering FAQs anymore. They can handle more complex requests and even have a bit of personality.
Absolutely. Another area where LLMs are making waves is content creation. Marketing teams are using them to generate everything from blog posts and social media updates to product descriptions and even personalized email campaigns.
Whoa, so instead of staring at a blank page, they can get a head start with AI-generated drafts and then add their own creative flair.
Precisely. This frees up time for marketers to focus on strategy and the human touch that makes their brand unique.
That's really cool. It seems like this technology has the potential to empower people to be more creative and efficient.
I completely agree. And the applications go far beyond marketing. We're seeing LLMs used in education to create personalized learning experiences in finance, to analyze market trends and manage risk, and even in healthcare to assist doctors with diagnosis and treatment planning.
This is mind-blowing. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology.
And that's what makes it so exciting. The future of LLMs is wide open, and it's up to us to shape it responsibly.
So for those listening who are eager to explore how LLMs can transform their business or just learn more about this incredible technology, what would you suggest?
Well, it all starts with understanding the potential and the limitations. Don't get swept up in the hype, but don't underestimate the power of this technology either.
That's great advice. And if you're looking for expert guidance on how to harness the power of LLMs, you know where to find us.
That's right. Here at Schogini, we specialize in AI chatbot development and consultancy. Our team can help you identify the right use cases for your business, develop custom AI solutions, and navigate the ever-evolving world of LLMs.
We're passionate about helping businesses leverage this technology to enhance customer experiences, boost efficiency, and unlock new possibilities. You can learn more about our services and get in touch with us at https://www.scogini.com.
We believe LLMs are more than just a technological advancement. They represent a fundamental shift in how we interact with information and technology. It's a journey we're excited to be a part of, and we invite you to join us.
Thanks for taking us on this deep dive into the world of large language models. It's been an incredible journey, and we hope you've learned something new and exciting today.
Remember, the real thinking happens when we as a society thoughtfully consider how to best guide the development and use of these powerful tools. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming. Yeah, it's a tough one.
So researchers are trying to make the data less biased.
Right, trying to clean it up and make sure it's representing everyone fairly.
And I guess also figuring out ways to make the models themselves less likely to amplify those biases.
Exactly. It's all about building more responsible and ethical AI.
For sure. And on that note, the article also mentions something about the environmental impact.
Oh, yeah. That's another big consideration.
It said that training one of these large language models uses a ton of energy.
Yeah, it's like powering a small town for a while.
Wow. So is there anything being done about that?
Definitely, researchers are working on developing more efficient training methods and exploring ways to reduce the carbon footprint.
So it's not just about making the model smarter.
Right.
It's also about making them more sustainable.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We need to think about the long-term impact of this technology.
Okay, so we've got these incredible abilities, but some serious challenges too.
Uh-huh.
What else should we be thinking about as we explore LLMs?
Well, the fact that this technology is advancing so rapidly raises some pretty big questions about the future.
Like what kind of questions?
Well, for example, what happens when LLMs become so good at generating content that it's basically indistinguishable from human-created content?
Whoa.
What does that mean for authorship creativity, even the way we define intelligence?
Yeah, that's getting pretty deep.
Right.
I mean, I can see how this technology could blur the lines between human and machine.
Definitely. In ways we probably haven't even thought of yet.
So are researchers looking into this at all?
Oh, absolutely. They're focusing on a few key areas to try and shape the future of LLMs.
Like what, for instance?
Well, one key area is explainability.
Explainability. What's that?
So right now, LLMs are kind of like black boxes. We know they work, but we don't always understand exactly how they get the results.
So it's like magic.
Ha ha ha, kind of. But that lack of transparency can make it hard to trust them.
Yeah, I get that. Especially if we're going to be relying on them for important things.
Right, exactly. So researchers are developing tools and techniques to make LLMs more transparent, to help us peek inside that black box and understand the reasoning behind their decisions.
So we can see how they're thinking, so to speak.
Exactly. And that's crucial for building trust and making sure these models are used ethically and responsibly.
More transparency, more trust makes sense. What other areas are on the research radar for LLMs?
Another really exciting area is the development of hybrid systems.
Hybrid systems.
So these are systems that combine the power of LLMs with access to external databases and real-world information.
Okay, so like instead of just relying on what they've learned from text and code,
Right?
they can actually tap into other sources of knowledge.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Imagine an LLM that can not only generate text, but also access a massive library of medical knowledge to help doctors make better decisions.
Wow, that could revolutionize healthcare.
It could have a huge impact in a lot of different fields.
So they could become even more powerful and accurate over time.
Precisely. And as these models become more integrated into our lives, regulation is going to be a big topic.
Yeah, I can see how that would be important.
Governments and organizations around the world are starting to grapple with the implications of this technology.
I bet.
And we can expect to see more guidelines and regulations aimed at making sure these models are developed and used responsibly.
So it sounds like the future of LLMs is full of potential, but also some pretty big questions.
Definitely. This technology is evolving so rapidly, it's going to be fascinating to see where it goes.
I agree. But before we get too lost in the future, let's bring it back to the present.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier that these LLMs are already being used in some pretty incredible ways.
Uh-huh.
Could you give us some real-world examples of how businesses are using them right now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tons of examples.
Like, what would you say are some of the most interesting ones?
Well, one area that's just exploding right now is AI-powered customer service.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely noticed that.
So instead of waiting on hold forever,
Ugh, I hate that.
you can just chat with a bot, and it can actually understand your questions
No way.
and give you helpful answers
24/7.
exactly whenever you need it.
Wow, that's way better than those old school bots that just gave you like canned responses.
Oh, yeah, totally. And because LLMs are so good at natural language, these bots are getting smarter and more human-like all the time.
So it's not just about answering basic questions anymore. They can actually handle more complex requests.
Exactly, and even have a bit of personality.
That's so cool.
Another area where LLMs are making a big impact is content creation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, marketing teams are using them to generate all kinds of content.
Like what kind of content?
Oh, blog posts, social media updates, product descriptions, even personalized emails.
Wow. So instead of staring at a blank page,
Right.
they can get a head start with AI-generated drafts.
Exactly. And then they can just add their own creative flair.
That's amazing. It
Okay.
frees up so much time for them to focus on other things.
Exactly, like strategy and the things that really make their brand unique.
It seems like this technology could really empower people to be more creative and efficient.
I totally agree. And it goes way beyond marketing. We're seeing LLMs being used in education to create personalized learning experiences,
Wow.
in finance to analyze market trends and manage risk, and even in healthcare to help doctors with diagnosis and treatment planning.
It's incredible how many different fields it's impacting.
It really is. It
It-
feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology.
It's mind-blowing. So for those listening who are excited about LLMs and want to learn more,
Mm-hmm.
what would you suggest they do?
Well, I think the most important thing is to understand both the potential and the limitations.
Okay, so don't get too caught up in the hype.
Right. But also, don't underestimate the power of this technology.
It's all about finding that balance.
Exactly. And of course, if you're looking for expert guidance on how to use LLMs in your business,
You know where to find us.
that's right. Here at Schogini, we specialize in AI chatbot development and consultancy.
We can help you figure out the best ways to use this technology in your business.
Develop custom AI solutions and navigate this ever-changing world of LLMs.
We're passionate about helping businesses leverage this technology to improve customer experiences, boost efficiency, and unlock new possibilities. You can learn more about our services and get in touch with us at https://www.schogini.com.
We believe LLMs are more than just a technological advancement. They represent a fundamental shift in how we interact with information and technology. It's a journey we're excited to be a part of, and we invite you to join us.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of LLMs.
It has.
Thanks for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope you learned something new and exciting.
And remember, the real thinking happens when we as a society decide how to best guide the development and use of these powerful tools.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming.